and now we're going, man. Hey, thanks for doing it. I really appreciate it. Spur of the moment. I got you on the podcast. We're gonna be able to talk a little bit.
All right.
I have little experience with your game. Unfortunately, I've had no time to play with it, but man, I got some invitations to do a playthrough. So I guess you have something to talk about in terms of how things are being received.
Yeah, things are developing as they should. Of course, with the whole worldwide COVID lockdown is strange at the moment, but in general, we're still going forward. Yeah.
Well, tell me about that. I mean, in terms of, obviously, we're not going to be able to avoid not talking about it. How is it affecting the game development?
Well, we are at the point that we wanted to do a lot of actual testing. We were going to go to GaryCon in Lake Geneva in March, which got canceled. The flights got canceled and everything got canceled. So it affected a very important showcase and testing moment for us with the American audience. Maybe we can go to Gen Con if the world is not locked down by then. I don't know, but it's not as Gen Con, in my opinion, is not as suitable for promoting your tabletop role-playing game as GaryCon is, because GaryCon is all about tabletop role-playing games, and Gen Con is about all kinds of board games in general. So that's definitely something that set us back some. And then we are on the verge of doing a lot of play tests here in the Netherlands, which is not allowed at the moment. So we are doing some online testing with a couple of people, which is working out okay. And a friend of ours in the US has done a couple of online play tests, which went okay. But you can imagine that with tabletop role-playing games, it's all about being there in the same room, face to face, and having tools like Roll20 or Fantasy Grounds. These are really cool tools, and they are nice if you cannot meet face to face, but it's not the same.
Totally get that. I mean, that's one of the things that got in my way. I love role-playing games. I love them, but I'm kind of the type of player that loves to have it wash over him. So if I have to engineer the game or whatnot, it just doesn't work. I mean, it's just much better in person. You know, it just feels better in person. I'm not very good at those online collaborations or meetups or whatnot. Yeah, that's crazy. So you were going to go to GaryCon. That's Indiana, right? Am I correct about that? No, where is that? Where's GaryCon?
Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, I think.
Oh, Wisconsin. That makes more sense. I was going with Gary, Indiana. There's a town there.
All right.
But yeah, that's a D&D guy, right? That's his convention.
Yeah.
That's the tabletop mecca, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that sucks.
We were there last year. It was absolutely. Oh,
Say it
sorry,
again,
go ahead.
No, please. I interrupted you. What did you say?
We were there last year, and it was amazing. So many enthusiastic people playing all kinds of tabletop role-playing games. If you ever have a chance to go there, you really should if you love role-playing games. It's like 4 days of non-stop playing role-playing games face-to-face with people at a table.
That's amazing. That sounds like a lot of fun. We have obviously New York Comic Con here, and I've gone on Sunday often, and it's not bad for like an hour in the morning, but it feels like you're gonna get run over by the afternoon. Something a little bit more casual that you're able to chill and actually check stuff out would be nice. You just get really hectic. Yeah. San Diego got canceled. I mean, everything is getting canceled. And I mean, when you think about it, people like yourself who are already, you're putting something together grassroots. How do you continue doing it when you have to stop? You know what I mean? Funding and whatnot is progressive, isn't it? Okay, we've got to this stage. Now we need to get another leap forward or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, we are in a pretty critical phase at this point. We're at the phase where I'm doing the first redaction of the core book, which by now is over 300 pages. And that's my main responsibility right now for the development team. But since we have the kids at home since March 1st or something like that, I cannot do anything. So the whole team is waiting on me to finish redacting the core book, which will not happen until the lockdown is done. So the Netherlands just announced that the schools will reopen on May 11th. So that's in 2 weeks, which means that we might get some breathing room, which means that maybe I can continue redacting the core book again.
The Netherlands does year-round schooling, right? It's not like America where you have a few months off in the summertime.
In the Netherlands, you have several holiday periods spread out over the year, and during the summer there is a period of 6 to 9 weeks, depending on what school you're in, that you're off.
Oh, okay, 6 to 9 weeks is pretty significant. How long is it going to take you to actually get the tome completed?
Well, that's going to be tricky. I was making a decent pace before the lockdown happened. The hardest part was actually the character creation chapter, which by itself is right now 50% of the core book.
How big is it again? You said 400, 300 pages?
50%, around 150 pages.
50%, 150 pages.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Roughly.
That's a big effort. I mean, how big is? I mean, I don't think I have it here with me right now. How big is the player's manual for D&D? Is it around 300 pages or is it less? Like, I think it's like 200, isn't it?
It's around 300, 400.
Is it around 300, 400? Okay.
Yeah, I think most RPG books are something like that. Yeah.
I think that honestly, as a player, that's my favorite part of the books. I just love them so much. A well put together book. I think we talked about this last time we discussed your game. I love them so much. They're like art.
I know. I mean, having something that looks good, feels good. There's something tactile to having a book like that. Yeah, I agree. So
is that your responsibility? I mean, I'm currently looking at publishing. I talk to a lot of people who publish. Publishing books is incredibly interesting to me. Are you actually looking at the publication of that book as a physical item that people can hold, or is somebody else taking on that task on your team?
We are looking at that. Yes, we have found a couple of publishers that can publish at the prices that can make it profitable for us, which still means we need to at least have a first batch of at least 1,000 copies for it to be worthwhile, and which means that we have to find at least 1,000 people that want to buy it. Of course, we would love the game to be much more popular, but being one of the new indie developers in the scene, we have to stay realistic at the same time.
Would you want to be indie though? I mean, you said indie developer, so I mean, I was going to ask why go in the direction of a publisher, but you could push the indie though, right? I mean, you could make this thing happen on your own through various means.
That's what we're definitely going to try. So
with the help of a publisher, though, you said.
Well, it's interesting. We have some good contacts with the fine folks over at what they're called again. That they recently got all the IPs for doing tabletop RPGs for Fallout and Morrowind, but they also got their hands on the IP for Vampire the Masquerade. Oh man, I have one of those blackouts or whiteouts where you can't come up with the name. It's a really cool company, and we met them at UK Games Expo.
And Vampire Masquerades, I played that. I can't remember the name of the company though. They're not the same ones that do Pathfinders, are they?
No. Let me just. This is embarrassing. I'll have to just look it up.
I'm doing it right now, my friend. I'm going to know it before you. That or hang up on the Zoom call. One or the other. Oh, or not type anything because my setup got totally destroyed when I realized how late I was.
Yeah.
Unplugged everything. All right. Well, anyway, you'll find it for me. It's like they're not big. They're an indie one too, I think, right? They're not gigantic. They don't do a booming business. They're really niche.
Well, I think they're
Paizo's. Do you think they do well?
No, it's not Paizo. No.
Paizo's what's it called? Pathfinder, I think.
Yeah, Paizo is Pathfinder. Yeah. Oh man, I can't believe.
Well, I can't get any of my stuff to work, so you're on your own as far as figuring it out.
I don't mind it. I fear this is a very boring moment for the podcast listeners at this
Well,
moment.
I mean, anybody listening who knows is probably screaming out the answer, right? I mean, right? I mean, that's how it works for me when this happens.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
Very true.
what was the point of mentioning them though? Again?
Well, the point is that they are a renowned TTRPG publisher, and if they like our product, they want to help us with the distribution in Europe and in US, which is handy because let's say we have a Kickstarter.
Oh man, you're gonna hate yourself when I tell you who it is. I'm gonna give you one opportunity to come up with it. It's White Wolf Publishing. I mean, it's like
no. White Wolf used to be the publisher.
Used to be. That's what Wikipedia's telling me. Let me see if I'm.
Yeah. It's not anymore.
White Wolf, Onyx Path, or Morpheus Entertainment, and then there's another one, Knights.
Morpheus.
Was it Morpheus?
That's the name.
And there's one that doesn't have any links. That's Night Studio.
Yeah. Morpheus nowadays is doing it, and they're doing a great job of it.
It's not Morpheus. It's Modifius.
It's Modifius.
Modifius. Thank you. Ooh.
Yes.
Man. All right. Well, we just if there was anybody listening, they're gone completely.
Oh man. So
I like the name though. Modifius.
It's a beautiful name. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I like that a lot. They're British. What are they? I'm trying to fit Paul. Yeah, London. They're British. Oh, they do a Cthulhu game.
Yeah.
You guys are. Go ahead.
They have a really impressive list of IPs, and I think that's one of their. It's really difficult making money with a tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah.
And they found a method to do this, which is very impressive.
In terms of kicking off something else, is there something that a role-playing game does for you as a game developer? I mean, because you're right, it's a flooded marketplace. I mean, you're basically doing it because you love tabletop gaming, right?
Yes.
You want to make a perfect game. You're not going to be rolling into Leonardo DiCaprio money for a game development. So in your mind and in the mind of your team, is there something that you do beyond this, or does this continue to expand into something bigger?
Oh, you'll have to repeat the last bit of the question. There was some problem with the audio there.
Oh, it's no problem. Basically, I'm asking, is the game, because I'm looking at Modifius, and they're huge. Would you want to become a Modifius one day with like 4 or 5 different games? Or is this focus just one game? Is it going to be a gigantic kind of development?
It depends. If, like Modifius, we find a way to do it sustainable without it being too stressful. If we have to fight every day to pay the salaries of the team members, then no. But if we can find a sustainable method where we don't need to get filthy rich, but if we make enough money to pay for the team, be able to do something fun every now and again, then yes.
That's the hard part, isn't it? Because you're talking about a living wage, right? You're talking about something that somebody can live in Amsterdam and have an apartment and a family and not be suffering to make the art of the game. I mean, man, this world that we live in right now, it sucks. I don't know if it's even possible in the Netherlands. When I was a kid and I fantasized about your country, that would be the place I thought it was possible. Is it possible anywhere where you can actually do this and have a normal life? Or, back in the day, our parents, they worked in factories or they were whatnot to make food appear on our table.
Yeah, regardless of country, I think you will have to work hard. I mean, if you look at our game, we've been working on it now, I think, for 4 years by now.
Yeah.
And so that and that's before we sold a copy.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of time and energy that you need to invest in it. And we think we have a shot in making it viable for us as a company, but it's going to.
Is it even possible in today's day and age? I mean, with the coronavirus, going back to the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, well, that's going to be tricky. That really depends, because a lot of experts say that there might be another wave of COVID coming after this one.
Yeah, the fall, right? I mean, they say that this is the new norm. They say that this is climate change. They say that because we fucked with our climate so much that we can expect this to just routinely happen. And if you look at it, people say, I mean, you read on Reddit, if you go on that website or anywhere you pick up your news, you might actually see them saying, there's been a trend for the last every other 2 years or something gigantic that crops out of some horrible place on the planet, and it scares the crap out of everybody. I mean, it starts killing people really rapidly. Coronavirus,
Well,
that's what it means, right? It means new virus that we don't know what it's going to do to you. So get ready, guys. It's going to be a ride from hell. And
yeah, and it's very disruptive and it's very unpleasant for everyone. At the same time, it is definitely the effect of there being simply too many people on this planet. And yeah.
Let's play a game then. We are now, we're content creators, right? We spent a lot of time developing things for people to buy and engage with on certain levels. Going forward, do you think that there's a way for us to exist? Or is it now our time to emerge from the darkness, basically? Because I mean, I don't want you to go away. I want what you're doing, and I want so many other creators to stand up and do stuff too. But everybody can't create art, right? I mean, you can't have everybody in a creator in economy, right?
It's a strange thing. There was a CEO in China a while back from a really big company that said that according to, in his opinion, the only way the future forward would be that at some point all menial work is automated, and everybody will have to eventually end up getting some sort of basic universal income because there will simply be no regular work, and everybody will become a creator because nobody wants to be bored. So this
Not
is
everybody,
this is
though. It can't be everybody.
Well, this is a bit
There has to be somebody. I mean, I like to play with this idea.
Not everybody's creative in the same fields. I mean, some people can't sing, some people can't.
So I start thinking about
some people can't draw. And
I think you're roboting on me a little bit.
It will be a very strange Spotify, the music that comes out on there. It's kind of like the game industry. There's so many creators. There's so many unknowns. Maybe in a strange way, we all go back to people being the local bard because that's the only place that they'll be known because there's so much competition.
I don't know, man. You got the internet. It's not going to go away, right? It's this organism already that's collected the vast sums of human knowledge, and it's continuing to do so. I produce all of my fiction there. That's where it is. I mean, you buy everything there, you shop there, you talk there. We're recording this podcast there. Everything is on the internet. It doesn't go away. In some capacity, I don't think it'll go away as long as you have electricity pouring into something somewhere, some server, you can collect it there. What did I hear? The overall weight of the internet's very small. I mean, it's everything we've ever done in terms of intellectuality. Yeah, it goes away if an asteroid hit us, but in terms of being able to be there, it doesn't go away. So we're going to be able to incrementalize our way into something new. And now we really have to do it because people are starving. Dude, I hate to say this, man. I was walking down like 6th Street, or I'm sorry, like 6th Avenue yesterday, and I saw a dude like eating out of the garbage, like straight up standing there and taking stuff out of people's garbage bags. And he didn't look like he was the bad type of homeless. He looked like he came from an apartment moments before. Is that insanity? Is that guy crazy? It's possible. But see, that's starving. That's what he did too. Because I'm hearing that's what the case is, where people aren't able to provide
that's just not right. And you know what? I don't know how it's over there, but over here it's a self-induced shortage of supplies because people are panicking. If nobody would panic and everybody would do their groceries as they would do normally, there wouldn't be a shortage of anything and everything.
Nothing. It makes no sense to me. There's no earthly argument that anybody could make to justify the shortages of toilet paper. All of a sudden, you bottle of toilet paper, get worldwide. No, man, that's conspiracy. Something, somewhere. There's an answer that makes sense, and it's criminal, and it's horrible, and oh god damn the future when I have to read that shit. It's gonna come out eventually.
Yeah. Wasn't it Einstein that said there is two things infinite in this universe? One is the universe itself, and the other is human stupidity. And I'm not sure about the universe.
I had heard that before. Yeah, I'd heard that before. As you were saying the beginning part, I was thinking, yeah, the only thing universal is stupidity. And I guess I heard the summed up version. Absolutely.
So in a sense, Corona itself, of course, yes, it's a dangerous virus. It has a higher mortality rate, and it has a very high contagious effect on people. So it spreads fast. So it's bad for us. That we can accept that. But at the same time, what is perhaps even worse for it is the way that as a collective we respond to it. That's the bad part about it. The way
We've already
people are.
proven that there's a large portion of our population that wants to see massive death. Doesn't care. Man, the science deniers are really just, I'm okay socially isolating. I don't care. This is my life anyway. You know, me and my wife discussed it and we said, okay, let's get a second apartment. Like, this is not going to happen together anyway. We were at each other's throats. I mean, but we were amicable, you know, we're reasonable people. We realized where we were. We're like, let's give our children another place to play, ourselves some time off and freedom from each other and the nastiness. But, you know, that's a level of freedom that a lot of people aren't able to get to. Control and dominance and all this bullshit. Freedom, whatever, finances or whatever. But I mean, I like this being alone. It might not be like every day for the rest of my life, but I'm able to bear down and accomplish my goals with little mental anguish, you know?
This is one of the positive side effects of being a creative individual. A lot of creative individuals are fine being by themselves because they don't need others to entertain themselves. They can entertain themselves with whatever happens in the theater of the mind. And so socially, I don't feel as socially deprived as many other people that really need to meet up every night in the pub to feel like they're alive. I don't have that need. So it's different for different people, but at the same time, I really just miss the simplicity of just sitting together with a bunch of people without having to be spastic about maintaining 1.5 meters of space and these kind of things.
It opens up the way that we're living our lives, right? I mean, in terms of, we can't control what happens in the wet markets of Wuhan, China, but we can control how we handle ourselves in our own country. It's interesting that I hate going to stores in New York. It's really awful. They're so crowded and people are rude. And there's so many fights. It's just, I don't know how it is in the Netherlands. You guys are so nice over there, though. And yeah, you have like, you guys are hardcore, but I think that's the history of the shipping or whatever. But you guys are nice. You seem orderly once you step in your bike lanes, and then you'll get cursed at and kicked.
And in a sense, some of these things are definitely better regulated. I mean, I was in New York in, I think, 2010, and I noticed there were some bike lanes, but not many. I considered renting a bike and cycling there, but it felt like doing suicide.
A lot of bicyclists now, it's really dangerous.
Yeah, and over here, being a cyclist is one of the safest modes of transportations. We don't need to wear helmets because chances of you getting into an accident are very, very slim. When it comes down to the grocery stores over here, they have stickers on the floor that indicate how much space you should keep to the other when you're near the cash register. There is disinfectant at the entrance and a place where you can wash your hands with warm water installed outside of all grocery stores. So even if you go to the grocery store, there's not a big chance that you get infected or will infect somebody. And I definitely hear you about stores being busy. If I go to a grocery store, I get stressed out from all the visual stimuli that the store offers you. So we've been having our groceries delivered for at least
have you been?
Year.
It's interesting. So then that's what I'm talking about. Can we get to the point where the menial job of delivering the groceries is done by a drone of some sort or another? Would that be neat? Like a van?
Eventually that happens. I'm pretty sure that's the future.
I think it is. I don't think they fly though, like people think. I think they're just going to be on the road. Like the UPS van or whatever your equivalent is pulls up to your house and then the back drops out and the little robot drives out and up to your whatever. Wouldn't even be that hard.
There have been tests in the Netherlands with pizza delivery by drone.
By flying, right?
Successful.
By flying?
Yeah, flying with the 4 rotor drones, the standard type.
That's so freaking cool, man. Miami, Florida. I don't know if you're probably familiar with that city. I'll stop being dumb. They built a high-rise that has come equipped with not a helipad, but car landing area on the top. Like they're planning for a future. I mean, I don't mind not driving. I have no issue giving up that control at all. Let me read a book, let the AI handle it, my getting there, and that's fine. And I think that's the only way human beings fly in the future, that we don't have control of that plane.
Several tests have already shown that if self-driving cars, if they develop the way they do, they will be safer than when people are driving them. And I totally agree. Wouldn't it be wonderful that, let's say, we want to meet physically with people on the other side of the country, we get into a car that have the seats oriented in such a way that the front people are not facing the front, but the rear, so you can see each other, and you're with 4 people in the car around a table, you play a game, maybe even a tabletop role-playing game while you're being driven to your destination.
Yeah. Are you considering that in terms of the development of your game, that it potentially will be played electronically on a tabletop? There might be 4 live people around the table, but the game itself might be on the cloud or the network or whatever have you.
Well, I think for Æther Void, we're going to go full niche paper version. At least that's that always has been our plan. I mean, yes, you see people convert televisions or big touchscreens into tables and use them as digital playgrounds for tables.
Maybe even something more like an augmented reality type situation where you have glasses on and you can plug into the same game and the materials show up in front of you, but there's no materials there actually. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's absolutely possible. I mean, many years ago, Microsoft already had a Minecraft version that worked like that. You would have your Minecraft blocks on a table and you could pick away blocks, put blocks back on it. It's pretty awesome. But for me, I think the reason why I don't want it for Æther Void, because I think the biggest selling point of a tabletop role-playing game is that it utilizes the player's imagination. And a player's imagination, especially with the target audience for tabletop role-playing games, is bigger and more creative than what we can make things look like. I mean, sure, there are some amazing 3D artists that can make amazing models.
Oh yeah, but you don't want that, do you? If you did that, you wouldn't be a tabletop game, because theater of the mind is like the.
I know. So I don't want an augmented table. I don't want a digital experience. I want a storyteller that tells you what the setting is, and I want the players to envision in their mind what it looks like. And the beauty about this is that if you were to ask the 5 players in a game how they heard the storyteller telling it, they would probably see a different world in their mind, but it doesn't matter because they don't have to share notes on it.
Well, I mean, in terms of role-playing, if you're not paying attention enough to understand what the DM or the game master is saying, you're going to die.
Yeah,
right?
Very true.
You have to be kind of on the same page with the storytelling.
Yeah, you definitely have to be on the same page on where the enemies are and these kind of things. But let's say that DM tells you that you arrived at a harbor town and you can hear the seagulls flying over and you can smell the sea breeze and you can hear the waves lapping up the shores. That paints a picture, right? But it does not tell you the style of the houses. It does not tell you how many houses there are, how crowded the streets are, if the streets are muddy or if the streets are cobblestones. A lot of it is left to the imagination, which means that these 5 players are walking through the same town, but one person might see wooden houses, another might see stone houses. And of course, it all depends on how much detail is given by the DM. But
I just thought of the thing is, though, it's all action, isn't it? You're not going to pay attention to anything that's not a challenge to you directly. Absolutely. Okay, there's 6 stairs in front of you. You have to climb up them, but you're drunk. Roll dexterity and whatever. No, I'm just saying. But that makes those 6 stairs work to you. Tell me about the 6 stairs. Are they stone? Are they wood? Whatever. It's a lame example, but it's exactly what popped in my mind as you were talking. It's all about what makes the character or the player character think.
Yeah.
It creates the world.
Yeah.
I love it. It's really interesting in terms of the verbiage anyway. I don't know. You're not playing at all with your family. You're not doing any play testing with the kids and the wife.
Well, Æther Void is developed in English, and my oldest daughter is 7, and even though her English is quite good, she only just started reading last year, so her reading skills are just good enough so she can play the Dutch version of Animal Crossing at the moment, which is pretty good. but her English, I think, is nowhere near enough to actually play Æther Void. I've started developing. Well, actually, Æther Void is based on a Dutch role-playing game I developed a long time ago, which isn't finished yet, which I am now finishing up. Because if I finish that game, I have a Dutch role-playing game to play with her. And I might offer something to all the Dutch parents that want to play role-playing games. So
Dutch role-playing game. Are
yeah.
there other specific game companies coming out of the Netherlands that aren't catering to China and the rest of the world? Did you actually have like niche? There's specifically, and back in the day, remember when BBC used to make some really cool television shows and you could only really hear about them unless you had a friend that went over there and recorded them on VHS and brought them back home. You never got to see them. And you know, it's awesome to think that there are actual tabletop games coming out in the Netherlands in Dutch that I'll never see because nobody's ever going to translate them either.
Yeah, there is a very nice Dutch role-playing game called Ambrosia. Actually, technically, it's Belgian, from the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. And it's a really beautiful role-playing game. And in my opinion, it would deserve translation to English because it is steeped into quite a lot of really old Dutch folklore, which is quite interesting. It makes it for quite a cool world. So, I think there's also some French role-playing games that I'll never play because my French really sucks. There's definitely a couple of German role-playing games. A lot of German and French people are not that comfortable with English, so they prefer to play in their mother tongue.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm talking about, because that's how Witcher came to be, right? As a Polish, very famous Polish fantasy series, and got translated or made into the game first, then translated, right? I mean,
that's right.
There's tons of stuff to dig out into that in terms of writing a game into English, and you already got skill in that. All these games out there that need to be translated, you understand how to navigate or engineer a game. Did we talk about that, what your background is in terms of how you're able to do this mathematically? I think I wanted to talk about it with you last time, and I'm not sure if I broached the subject with you about the math behind the actual game itself.
Well, I can't remember. I mean, with this crisis going on, I'm so overworked by my own kids that my brain doesn't work anymore. So we may have touched upon it, we may have not. So yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting in itself, isn't it? I've heard that people are having a very difficult time doing what they normally are able to do quite easily.
Yeah, but I think part of it is every day starts to look the same because there is not your regular structure of going to work on a Monday and having weekend on a Friday. So the passage of time is much more fluid than it's normally to many people. And
yes, right. I guess it's all about how you've lived your life.
Yeah, and especially for young parents with young kids that all of a sudden find themselves not only having to work under very different circumstances, but aside from having to do work at the same time, they're expected to do daycare, teach their kids, and do this, and also find a way to relax because you got to have the energy to do this, and you have to do all these four things in the same period of time, which is physically impossible. I mean, unless you want to rip the fabric of the space-time continuum, which I wouldn't recommend. But so I think a lot of young parents are pretty much overworked at the moment, which means that their brain doesn't work because it's been working too hard.
My wife was she worked very hard from 6 weeks after her babies were born until this happened. She loves it. She loves being home. They're working her to death at her job, making her do stuff online, but she's able to handle it. And she loves it. She doesn't want to be different. She wants to always work from home from now on.
Well, that's the good part. I really love the quality time I spend with my kids. I haven't spent so much time with my kids anytime else before that. I think we have even better quality time now than we do if we have a holiday with the kids because you have to find a way to make it work. So yeah, that's one of the really positive side effects, I think.
The family time itself, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, what is it? Just the game itself? Are you a writer of fiction too?
I am a writer of fiction, but absolutely not a known one. I finished one book, which I actually got one of the biggest Dutch publishers to see and decline, of course.
Congratulations, man. Just to get them to agree to look at it's hard. And they're so afraid to get sued. What was the story?
Yeah. I read a story about Asimov on how he got into a publisher, and basically he just looked up the name of the publisher, went over to the office and said, I want to speak to this particular person, and they got him in the room, and his work got declined, but the editor was willing to give him feedback that would help him out.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that inspired me. So on a good day, I phoned up the biggest publisher of Dutch fiction, and I told them, who's your editor for sci-fi and fantasy? I got the name. So on the next Monday, I got on my bike, I cycled over the canals of Amsterdam, met up with their fancy office on one of the canals, and rang the bell and said, I'm here to visit this and this person. And I said, oh, do you have an appointment? No, I do not. And I think it was 17. And they let me in. Apparently had time. He was curious, like, who is this 17-year-old kid that knows my name,
So
that
awesome.
is here to meet me? So we talked. He was very impressed with the effort. And of course, it's nice that it was inspired by another science fiction writer. And
he's not the only one that did that either. Fahrenheit 451, what's his face? Bradbury. He brought the collection that ended up becoming the Martian Chronicles. I think it's the Martian Chronicles, right? Is that what it is? Brought that to New York with him for like a week or a weekend or something ridiculously stupid, naive, Kansas-oriented thinking. He came here with his little portfolio of like 12 stories, and he went, everybody look, and by the end of it, everybody said, ha, 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 and then he got one person to agree, one person to sit down with him and say, look, dude, why don't you do this? Go home, edit all these stories together into a novel. I'll read it. And he did. He got somebody to read it, and that's so important. So important. And it's brave, and it takes balls. And a 17-year-old kid doing it makes sense. I don't know how old you are now, but I'm picturing myself 43. I do it too, man. I've done it like in my 30s.
Yeah,
I'm 40, bad enough.
Yeah, I'm 41 now, and I was scared shitless at the time. But you have a sort of naivety when you're that age that makes you not second guess your own actions, which is
different world though, man. 2001 really messed up our planet. I don't know about your planet, but it seemed like security guards just sprouted out of everywhere. I mean, you couldn't get into a building at all. I remember before 2000, you could get in some trouble because there was nobody around. You know, I joked.
For me, when I was 17, it was 1996. So that wasn't an issue at the time. People were very laid back about these things. And of course, security in 2001 in the Netherlands was especially much severe at airports, but not as severe in the rest of the Netherlands, as we didn't have the same level of threat that you might have throughout the rest of the world.
That's interesting. Yeah, you guys really care about what leaves your country.
Yeah.
I think I've been there twice, and it's been arduous to get out.
Yeah, it is.
One time I didn't try. The second time I did bring an edible with me. I was like, I was shitting bricks. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was so dumb.
Yeah. I really plan an extra hour of traveling time just for the whole process of trying to get out of the airport and out of the country. It takes so long.
Schiphol. How do you pronounce it? Schiphol? How do you pronounce the airport?
Schiphol.
Schiphol.
Yeah,
Schiphol.
That's pretty good. The first one was really good.
It's a beautiful airport. It's really effective in terms of what it does. Been there twice. I can't wait to go back. I like the Netherlands a lot.
Cool.
What made me branch off there? 17-year-olds. Yeah. So 2001 messed you guys up, or no? It did not mess you up.
It didn't mess us up so bad. And going back to the story of the book. So the book ended up on the desk of the lead editor for this publisher, and he told me, "Oh, this is awesome. I will read it, and I will give you back a list of feedback. We will not give you the standard declination letter if we do not like it." So I was really thrilled and excited, like, wow, this is just like Asimov. I'm going to have an editor that gives me actual feedback that makes me better so I can actually publish something at some point. And then a month later, I got the standard letter that it didn't apply and didn't count. And somehow, I don't know, at the time, that kind of really broke me and said,
Oh,
like, but
did
you
it?
promised to give me feedback.
Oh,
And
man. Yeah, of course it
then,
would. Didn't you
yeah.
write anymore after that, or did you?
I don't know. Well, actually, I did write. Oh yeah, I have the first couple of chapters of a book, at least 50,000 words.
Oh, good for you. That's not a couple chapters, man. It's almost like the entire freaking thing.
That's I was planning on writing a short novel. I think this was
Maybe you
10
wrote
years
several
ago,
short
but,
novels. I mean, that's possible. 50,000 is good. I have right now pre-selling on Amazon a novella that was only 20,000 words and it's 134 pages. So do the math on that. You've got about a 60,000 word novel that's 450 pages printed, you know?
And the story isn't even, I mean, we just finished the introduction pretty much in this book. I never expected it to be so big. And I'm actually really, this is something I would like to complete at some point. This could be epic.
It's interesting. I mean, as an indie, you understand that you have the power to put what you want out into the world whenever you want to do it. It's just in terms of quality, how long it takes you to actually get that stuff out there. I have a friend who does this. She's been doing it for years. I have her on the podcast all the time. And I think incrementally, she's able to put herself in a situation where she's competing professionally with how things look in the publishing world, you know? If you skew towards amateur, people aren't going to buy you. But if you skew towards mixing in with the big boys, people will accidentally pick you up and never wonder if they bought an indie or not. They'll just continue buying the great storyteller they found.
Yeah, that's definitely a route that can make it worthwhile, for sure. Yeah.
And we're closing in on an hour from the time I scheduled with you. I don't know when we actually got started.
Yeah, we started a little bit later because of all the technical difficulties, I think. But I actually need to go into another call in 3 minutes.
Okay. Did you want to? Go ahead. Did you want to add? Did you want to mention anything in terms of where people can get a hold of you in terms of your website or Twitter?
Well, of course, people should most definitely try out the game.
Okay. Are you still looking for playtesters?
Yeah, absolutely. We still have our free starter on our website for download. And of course, you will, for the time being, use Roll20 or something similar to try it out with your people. But give it a go. It's on æthervoid.com. There's a bar at the top where you can fill out your email address, so it can be sent to your email address. And so we can keep you posted on future updates of the game. You will not be spammed. So no disclaimer there. People should definitely try it out and let us know if they like it or not.
If I ever have friends to play it with, I definitely will break it out and give it a shot. Man, I really appreciate you dealing with the technical difficulties and hanging out with me for the last hour.
You too. Take care.
All right, man. Bye.
All right. Bye.